Our 10 a.m. session marketing strategy, Rob Stam is a 20-year veteran of business ownership and consulting. Rob is a published author, organizational strategist, and advisor to multiple businesses and business leaders. He is the co-founder of Michigan-based Navigate, a strategy marketing and design company, and he's a partner in multiple ventures in a variety of industries. His client list include over 200 companies and nonprofit organizations ranging from a single-person startup to mid-sized corporations under $100 million in annual revenues. An avid mountain biker, certified scuba instructor, Rob is a lover of all things outdoors. In 2017, he published his first book, Entrepreneur's Survival Guide, which identifies 10 key areas that every business owner should master to succeed in business and avoid the overwhelming odds of failure. Please give a warm welcome to Rob Stam.
Thank you so much. I almost want to listen to what I have to say after that. Well, good morning. Hope you're having a great show and everybody's awake and ready to go this morning. One of the advantages of my career is that I've gotten to have my hands on several industries and go to trade shows of all various types. And the highlight of my show so far actually happened in the last 5 minutes talking to the AV guys over here that get to work all the shows in Vegas. And I did not realize this, but if you're ever questioning your career choice, there's actually a Velcro industry that has their own trade show. So if you ever have a bad day, just remember you could be going to Velcro trade shows for a living. So anyways, so I want to get started here and talk about marketing. My goal today is to simply give you an outline of how to be strategic in your marketing. I want to start with a couple quotes, and I think these two quotes sum up how most of us feel about marketing. Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. A man who stops advertising to save money is like a man who stops a clock to save time. And in my experience with marketing and advertising, especially in this day and age with all the digital marketing and Facebook, there's a lot of confusion about how to market, and we become very reactionary with our marketing. And it becomes this just throwing mud against the wall type of scenario. So the problem as I see it is that most small business marketing is emotional and reactionary. So we need business, we do things, we buy an ad from this company, or we hear, oh, our competitors are on Facebook, we need to do more Facebook advertising, we need to do this. So we go and we find a company that posts for Facebook or does Google AdWords or whatever it may be, and we're just throwing mud against the wall. And so I ask that question, do sometimes you feel like this? Are you and your competition both just throwing mud against the same wall? You're buying billboards, they're doing this, you're doing Facebook ads, they're doing Facebook ads, you hire a company for $500 a month to manage your Google, and they're doing the same thing. And is there any strategy behind it, or is it just kind of emotional and reactionary? So, to transition that, we first have to understand what marketing is supposed to do. A lot of us think of marketing as something that we want quick response. You throw an advertisement out there, you throw a coupon out there, you get people in the door, which is part of it. There's certainly an element of marketing where you want quick results. But the overarching goal of any marketing strategy has got to be this, is to establish brand equity. There's actually nothing that has a greater value, a greater impact on value to your organization than brand equity. If you look at some of the largest companies in the world, they will tell you that the brand itself is worth more than the assets. Coca-Cola actually was the first company to say that if they liquidated every physical asset they had, it wouldn't be worth the name Coca-Cola. Okay, that's brand equity. We often think of brands as things like logos and trademarks and that kind of stuff. Those are just brand elements. Those trigger a thought about a brand. What a brand really is, this is my favorite definition if you're writing anything down, a brand is a collective perception of everyone who knows you exist. The collective perception of everyone who knows you exist. And so sometimes we think about brands, we think about the Apple computers of the world and all these big organizations and these powerful brands, but we forget that the same thing applies to a local business. So if you're running a car wash or a convenience store, whatever it may be, there is brand equity that's established. The question is, do you know what it is? Do you know if there's brand equity to your business? What is the marketplace saying about it? There are various components to establishing that brand equity. I believe that brand psychology is one. There's the creativity behind the brand, and then I believe that there's a mathematical component to it, and that's the one that probably gets ignored the most. One of my favorite phrases to use is that business is math. Almost every element of a business can be broken down into a series of numbers, and marketing is no exception. So to avoid the throwing mud against the wall scenario, we have to understand what we're trying to accomplish first, and understand that to do this needs a strategic plan behind it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to outline a strategy that we use in my company Navigate, that we're using with Tommy's Express down the way here. And this is just kind of something I've called the 5 M's, and it's a cyclical process that I think if you adopt it and really dig deep into each of these categories, it can have a tremendous impact on your organization. We've used this hundreds of times with our clients over and over and over again. Some of our clients we're working with 6, 7 years, and we keep going through this cycle, okay? So let's dive in here a little bit. First of all, I want to start with our market. The first M, the market. Who are they? Now, in the car wash industry, it's kind of easy to just say everyone with a car, right? To just say it's just that broad. But if everybody's saying that, again, that's just a giant wall that you're throwing mud against. So you have to dig deeper in that. And so you divide that into segments and go, well, who are they? How do they communicate? How do people who drive cars, different demographics, who's most likely to wash their car? What do they value? That's a big thing. Do they value a clean car? Does the marketplace you're in actually have that established into its DNA? Where we're at in Michigan, the corporate stores that started the Thomas Express brand, Quality Car Wash, some of you have heard about that. That community has got it in its DNA about car washing, because those washes have been there for 50 years. They're well run. They sponsor local events and softball teams and parades and all this kind of stuff. So that brand has equity there, but it has equity because the community values a clean car. There's a psychology behind that. Then who's competing for the attention of your market? Sometimes you have direct competition, sometimes indirect. What I mean by this, let me give you an example. I own a camper rental business, and that business started as a whole outdoor adventure rental company. And we looked at the market and said, okay, there's several retailers in town who sell things like kayaks and paddleboards and sell campers. So logically, that would be a competitor, right? But actually, it really wasn't, because the person who wanted to buy a paddleboard that was going to invest $1,000, they wanted it in their garage, they wanted to carry it around, that's a different customer than we were after. Our real competition wasn't the other people renting or selling paddleboards or kayaks, it was the cable company. We were competing against a mindset of saying, get off the couch and go outside, that there's more value in being outdoors than there is in sitting on the couch. That was our real competition. So you'd never think of a cable company being a competitor to an outdoor rental company, but that was our biggest threat. That was the biggest threat we had in the marketplace, was a mindset. Every decision we make as human beings is based on our values. From the time we get up to the time we go to sleep, to how we spend our day, to the type of coffee we drink, to where we work, to the car we drive, every decision we make is based on our values, okay? Let me give you a story related to car washing. A few years ago, I was hand washing my car and my wife's car in our driveway. And I have a son, he's now 14, I believe he was 8, 9 at the time. And I'm out there, I've got all the buckets and soap, and I'm washing the car. It's a beautiful sunny day. And he comes out and says, Dad, let's go play catch in the park. We live right next to a park. I was like, I'd love to. Let me just finish up the cars and I'll be right over, thinking I've got 20 minutes to a half hour to finish washing those cars. So I finish, hand wash, I dry the cars, I'm done. I go grab the ball glove and I go to the park to find my son. By this time, he's found neighborhood kids and he's out there having a good old time. And that's great, I'm happy for him. But by me staying and washing cars for a half hour, I lost that time with my son. And when you look at the grand scheme of life, when you look at your values, when you look back, when he's out of the house and got kids of his own, what do I wish I could do again? Am I happy that I saved the $6 by washing the car myself, or would I pay $6,000 to have those 30 minutes back to play catch with my son? Now that's a different sales pitch for a car wash than, hey, $19.95 all you can wash, or we've got this feature, we've got this, or we're the lowest price in town. It's tapping into the psychology of values. So when we're looking at brand equity and we're looking at a market, that's the most important element of this, is to establish that psychology up front. To establish the psychology of clean cars. How do we feel about ourselves with a dirty car? We can all relate to that, right? So before I can be sold on all the features and benefits and how great the car wash is, I first have to understand how this aligns with my values. That's how you look at a market. Not just here's ages and demographics and they live here. That's all important. Those demographics, but if you really want to engage them, you got to do more than just throw mud at the demographics. You got to do more than just put Google AdWords out there. That's all important, but you've got to tap into some psychological need. You have to tap into the value system of your market, okay? So that's the first M, your market. The second one is the message, and this is one I see probably most commonly misunderstood, is that we like to tell as marketers, as business owners, we like to tell how great we are, right? Why our wash is better, why our gas station is better, our C-store, whatever it may be. We love to sell on features and benefits. The problem is that's not how we communicate as human beings. We are hardwired to respond to narrative. You think about everything we know about human history, it all happened through storytelling. Even before words were written down, it all started from storytelling, generation to generation to generation. Take that into modern day terms. Let's say I go to a great restaurant, and I'm talking to you the next day, and it's a brand new restaurant in town, and I say, hey, I went here, you ought to check it out. And you ask me, well, tell me about it. Am I going to recite the menu items? I'm going to say, well, they have an 8-ounce filet mignon for $44.95. No, I'm going to tell you a story about my experience. That's how we communicate. So when you look at your marketing, your messaging, are you just messaging with bullet points, and this is how great we are in features and benefits? Or again, are you tapping that psychology by communicating how humans communicate? Of course you need to sell the features and benefits. Of course people need to know your competitive advantages. They need to know your pricing. But again, first and foremost, we have to understand that we are hardwired to respond to narrative. So great stories are about the audience first. First and foremost, going back to my story of car washing, I think that's an interesting sales campaign for car washes. I think that's a really interesting way to tap into it, because now it's about me. Because as I was telling that story, I could see a lot of you, especially when I talked about in the future looking back, what am I going to regret? There's a lot of this going on. You relate to that more than if I said, hey, we just built a new car wash and for $6 I can provide you this. You'd be like, good for you, right? But you relate to that story because many of you are probably parents, and you can relate to those times and go, man, I wish I could get 30 minutes back with my kids, but I was doing this instead to save a few bucks. So again, that story is about us. I told you a story about me, but really for most of you, that was a story about you. You could relate to that. Or when I say, how do you feel driving a dirty car? That's a story about you, not a story about my car wash, right? So great stories follow a format. Thinking back to 8th grade English class, this is the exposition, conflict, the crisis, the resolution. You know, who's the hero in the story? And so when you're working on marketing stories, you always want to bring that customer into the story as the lead character. You can feel better about yourself with a clean car. Your life is better if you do this. This story is about you. Here's the conflict. The conflict is this: you don't get enough time with your kids. It's not just that you have a dirty car. Your conflict is you're busy. Your conflict is whatever it is. Here's the hero. You can be a hero if you simply come here and wash your car in 3 minutes instead of doing this. Okay? So moving forward, the next one. So we've identified our market. We're digging deep. We're understanding the demographics, the psychology, the values of the marketplace. We're really trying to understand who that is. We're also trying to understand who we're competing against for their attention. The direct competitor down the street versus a competitive narrative. Then we're talking about what is the story we're going to tell. What's the right message to engage that audience? Then we get into the methodology. How do you actually reach them? If you're trying to reach somebody who is a millennial, you're going to use different methodology than somebody perhaps who's in their 70s, right? So you have to look at those markets and not just say, well, we do billboards, we do all this kind of stuff, but we say if we're trying to reach the first-time driver, this is where we're going to reach them. If we're trying to reach the family, this is where they're going to reach, and so on and so forth. The methodology I like to teach is based on, think about how a GPS system works. If you remember the old rental cars, like the Hertz Never Lost from 15, 20 years ago, and it always said that looking for satellites, you need 3 satellites for a GPS system to work. I believe the same is true in branding and marketing, that a consumer has to connect to a brand in 3 different ways. So these are your 3 satellites. There's the visual brand experience, the social brand experience, and the physical brand experience. The visual brand experience is your advertising. This is, you put a billboard out there, you run digital ads on Facebook, you run a TV commercial, a YouTube ad, whatever it is. This is your one-way communication. I'm telling you a story that you drive by and you see the billboard or you see the sign. The social brand experience, today more than ever, we can drive and control through social media, but that's also just the classic word-of-mouth advertising. People are going to connect to each other. This is when you're having a two-way conversation with your customer, or your customers are having conversations with each other. Ironically, there's my son calling me. I didn't plan that. The third one is the physical brand experience, which is probably actually it is the most important part of branding. This is the actual experience when somebody interacts directly with your business or your brand. So this could be with a salesperson, this could be when they come to your location. This is why it's so important to train employees. And that's everything from their attitude, to their smile, to the uniform, to whatever it may be. This is the most important part of marketing. And we often teach this as an operational strategy of how to make sure you've got good uniforms and all the training, that kind of stuff. But when you think about it and go, there is nothing I can do with a social media ad, there is no video I can produce, no website I can create that'll overcome a bad physical brand experience. Imagine going to that restaurant that I just told you about, and I say all these great things about it, and you go in there and you go, the food is fantastic, the service was fantastic. I went to the bathroom and it was a war zone. You'll never go back. There's nothing I can say to you if that was your experience. It does not matter how good the food is, none of that matters. We have to be obsessive about that physical brand experience. That trumps all marketing that any great marketer can do. okay? So think about that in the context of marketing, not just operations. Next one, this is where I want to hit the digital marketing and social marketing, because this is a misunderstood concept. This is a buzzword. A lot of people are like, how do we do better on Facebook and Google? And it just becomes this, we got to figure this out. And so we just start throwing stuff out there on social media. Understand this in 3 different ways. There's inbound, people that are looking for you. There's targeted, where you're targeting people specifically that you want to reach. And then there's engagement, when you get to communicate with them. That's no different than anything we've been doing since we've been walking upright. From an inbound, this is no different than the modern yellow pages. People are looking for something. They're looking for a car wash. The difference is it's faster, it's more prevalent, it's easier, it's driven by technology. Targeted, this is no different than coming to a trade show. This is targeted advertising, saying, why would a car wash manufacturer exhibit at any other trade show but one that's directed, targeted to the industry, right? And engagement, social, this is sponsoring parades, this is doing all the community activities. So don't misunderstand digital marketing and social media as this new revolution. It is. Don't misunderstand that either. There is a technology behind it, but from a psychological standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, it's the same thing, just on a different platform. So don't let it confuse you, don't let it scare you, but you also have to be strategic about it. You also have to think about what you're trying to accomplish. Just like you would have before you spent thousands of dollars on billboards, you would have looked at traffic counts, you would have looked at the size of the billboard, you would have driven by and said, are there trees in front of it? You would have done all that research. The same thing here. Do you really know who you're trying to reach with it? Today with digital marketing, some of the stuff we're doing with the Tommy's Express franchise brand is unbelievable. The geofencing stuff, we can find people within a meter. Can find them as they're driving by and know how many times they go by a car wash. We can geofence that type of stuff and reach people because we're extremely intentional. It takes money, but you can't just farm that out and say, here's $500 a month and do this. You have to really understand what's happening to be effective with this stuff. But it's scary, I'm not gonna lie, but that's the world we live in. So think of it as just an evolution of what we've already been doing, but understand it as well, okay? Media. Quickly, this is my little acronym I use for media. It's got to be professional. This is just because somebody has Photoshop on their computer doesn't mean they should be designing your signs or your advertising or whatever it may be. Is it authentic? Don't misrepresent yourself. We live in a society where if, you know the phrase, if you do something bad, 10 people hear about it. If you do something good, 1 person hears about it. Today it's if you do something bad, you're probably out of business. I mean, thousands and thousands of people. So don't lie in your advertisements. Be honest. Talk about yourself, be authentic, be transparent, be consistent. Don't have a sign that looks one way and then a Facebook ad that looks another way and a video that looks like this. Have a creative strategy. Have people designing your media and your advertisements that are looking at every aspect, from the uniform to the sign to the social media pages. Have a consistent theme, a consistent look, a brand asset match across all platforms. And of course, it's got to be effective. Well, how do you know if it's effective? Metrics. Most businesses ignore this. Going back to the first quote, I'm almost going to wrap up here, but going back to that, half the money I spend in advertising is wasted, I just don't know what half. There will always be a certain amount of throwing mud against the wall in marketing, let's be honest. It's impossible to track the results of every marketing strategy, and there's a lot of ways we do that, but the biggest mistake people make is they just accept that. And they go, well, we don't know. We don't know which half is making us money. There are metrics, and this is the responsibility of a business owner. Business is math, I'll use that phrase again. I think that the responsibility of every business owner is to look at marketing and go, is this an expense or an investment? And if you view it as an expense, if you view it as the hardest check to write, then you're not doing it right, quite frankly. So look at the metrics. Do you know your exposure? Do you know how many people are driving by your sign? Do you know how many people are looking at your Facebook ads? Do you know how many YouTube views? Do you know where they're coming from? Do you know the demographics of those people watching your YouTube ads or whatever it may be? Engagement. Are people engaging on your social platforms? Are you getting word of mouth? Are you learning more about your audience? Are you learning that most of your consumers that come to your wash are 35 to 45 or are they 60 to 80? What do you know about your audience so that you can refine your targeting? Do you have direct response? Do you have people signing up for email lists? Do you have people interacting on Facebook and commenting? Do you have people showing up? Are your numbers increasing on a daily basis? And the big thing is time relative revenue growth. Are you looking at things from this month, 2018 to 2017 to 2016 and seeing where you put money in advertising? And there are other factors, of course, but are you actually looking at your marketing from that standpoint, going, we invested this much in December and we saw in January, February, March this increase, and we cut our advertising and 3 months later we saw a dip. Are you paying attention to how you're investing in marketing and how that's lining up quarter to quarter, year to year? And then the last step is to keep doing it. Strategy is not a one-time thing. So as somebody who gives myself the title of organizational strategist, this is the thing I teach all my clients. I don't want to write a business plan. I don't want to write a strategic plan for somebody, because what happens to those? They sit on a shelf. You write a business plan, you go to the bank to get money, and you never look at it again. A plan should be dynamic. You should be using it as a tool, not as a document that you just shuffle away and say, here's our plan, and then 5 years later you go, oh, we got to write another plan. So from a marketing strategic plan, repeat this. Keep asking yourself, what am I learning about my market? What's changing? What competitors are in town? What are they doing? What's our messaging? Is it relevant today, or is it still 5 and 10 years old? Are we reusing the right methods? Is our media up to date? Is it relevant, or is it dated? Metrics, are we paying attention? So that hopefully helps you a little bit as you go forward in marketing. That's the 5M cyclical process. And with that, my time is up. Thank you.